More NFL stars holding out of mandatory minicamp over new contracts. We're heading to Dolphins minicamp with updates. Plus, are the WNBA's newest team, the Golden State Valkyries, about to become the world's most valuable women's franchise? Welcome to everyone to Front Office Sports Today from FOS Studios in New York City. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Renee Washington. And thank you guys so much for joining us each and every weekday as we're chatting the biggest stories happening in the business and culture of sports. We also have NFL star DeAndre Hopkins joining us, talking about his new chapter with the Ravens and his chapter next after football. But first, let's dive into the shoot around.
Yeah, and let's start with Major League Baseball acquiring a minority stake in Jomboy Media, the YouTube and social creators behind the funny breakdown and lip reading videos. Now, the partnership will include new content development and IP, plus baseball will have their stars and other celebrities participate in as well. And I just noticed you were lip reading the whole time. You should be in these videos. I mean, this is a really big partnership for Major League Baseball to be doing with social creators. This is something they never would have been able to do.
Let me talk for real this time,
Yeah.
but I will say it does come days after Major League Baseball's 8-figure investment in Athletes Unlimited Softball League, and now they're investing in Jomboy Media as well. So I think it's also a sign of them being able to invest, support, and encourage creators. That's something they talked about in that community space of people that already have that voice, that authentic voice in baseball. And when you look at Jomboy Media, they have such a large digital presence, with their 93 million social engagements they had last year, nearly 400 million views on their videos over the course of the history. So it's an opportunity for Jomboy, which started out as a hobby, to take a massive next step that might open the door for other content creators, whether in baseball or in other sports as well.
Look, Major League Baseball is seeing where the eyeballs are, and this is where the new development in terms of where fans are. So this is where you gotta go. Meanwhile, without Caitlin Clark, WNBA ratings continue to soar as last weekend's Indiana Fever and Chicago Sky game on CBS brought in 1.9 million viewers. That is the third most watched WNBA game of the year. The Fever and Sky opener on ABC, by the way, still the most watched this season with about 2.7 million viewers. What do you think about this?
We wondered on this show, Baker, how WNBA attendance, ratings, and overall excitement was going to be impacted with Caitlin Clark sidelined for 4 games. And we already saw the historic game on Ion, the Fever versus the Sun, that had a 119% increase from last year's game, as well as just having the largest audience ever on Ion without Caitlin Clark. And now we see it again. As you mentioned, for this Fever Sky game to have just under 2 million viewers without Caitlin Clark, this rivalry that's growing, it's bigger than Caitlin. I think it shows that when she does return, you can now have a better idea of her true impact, because she is now working back in practices, limited, but I know her coach mentioned for Stephanie White that she's ramping things up, so she's going to be reevaluated this weekend in terms of when she can play. But for the league, it shows they've been able to grab an audience, keep them there, and convert them into Fever fans, but WNBA fans as well.
And the stars outside of Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, play a role in all of this. So this is important for the WNBA to create the storylines and the stars outside of her to keep the ratings interesting. And as you mentioned, Caitlin Clark likely going to play Saturday against the Liberty. Meanwhile, sports bettors in Illinois, listen up. Starting on September the 1st, FanDuel customers in the state will now see a 50-cent fee added to each bet placed. This in response to a recent tax change that was passed by the state that requires licensed betting platforms to pay the state for every wager placed. Now, DraftKings, one of the other companies out there, also now thinking about implementing a similar fee as well.
And I know Peter Jackson, the CEO of Flutter, which oversees FanDuel, was speaking on this, saying on one side, it's eye-opening how they're disproportionately impacting the lower waging recreational customers, punishing those operators that have invested the most to grow the online presence. But then on the other side, the concerns of, well, now are people going to be shifted to go towards maybe other ways of sports betting that's not as regulated and as monitored, which would be concerning. So I do think that bigger picture, this is going to have some impact on Illinois, but on just how sports betting is really perceived in the state.
Well, a majority of NFL teams are holding their mandatory minicamps this week. And already we have Aaron Rodgers' return, plus some major stars are skipping this week due to contract disputes. So let's take a look at our main event. All right, and let's join somebody who's just getting back from Dolphins minicamp, Cameron Wolfe over at NFL Network. Cameron, thank you so much for joining us. A lot of names with minicamp we got to talk about, but let's first start with Jalen Ramsey. Obviously, you were just at Dolphins minicamp. A lot of talk about whether or not he's going to get traded as to why he wasn't there today. What's sort of the latest here?
Yeah, no Jalen Ramsey at Dolphins practice today. He was excused from minicamp as both sides try to work out a trade. Look, this thing is done. It's a divorce in progress, and they're just trying to find the right partnership. It's a relationship thing. At this point, the relationship has run its course, and so he's still due $21 million guaranteed. That's a little bit of what's slowing down the trade process. They have a list of teams that Jalen Ramsey would like to go to, one including the Los Angeles Rams. But the money's a sticking point, seeing how much the Dolphins are willing to pay on that money to get a return back. And so both sides starting to wait through, and Jalen Ramsey, a really good player, waiting to see where he lands up. This thing may linger until late July when training camp starts.
And some other names across the league, top edge rushers in Trey Hendrickson with the Bengals, TJ Watt with the Steelers, Terry McLaurin, another one who's one of the highest paid receivers in the NFL already with Washington. And as you mentioned, Jalen Ramsey, I'm curious, from what you've heard, who do you anticipate getting a deal done in terms of an extension before the season starts, or who might have that Hassan Reddick going into the season and waiting until maybe October before they get the contract they're seeking?
Well, summer is pay me my money time. And there's a lot of folks, edge rushers, receivers, looking for their money. I'll start with the edge rushers because Trey Hendrickson and TJ Watt is very interesting. They both saw Myles Garrett get that big contract, nearly $40 million a year. And that's the number that at least TJ is going for. Trey wants to be somewhere close in the neighborhood. And I had heard some progress with the Bengals as far as Trey Hendrickson early in the offseason, but at this point, it's really reached a stalemate. He's not in minicamp. Watt's not in minicamp. And both sides seem to be drawing their foot in the sand. Now, ultimately, deadlines for action, I'd look at that training camp date when those fines get a little bit more expensive to see whether or not those two guys come in. And for Terry McLaurin, he's a guy who's been their number one receiver. He saw Deebo Samuel get a contract. He's like, where's my money? And ultimately, my expectation is there's some sort of solution with all three of these deals. I think that of the three, Trey Hendrickson is probably the most likely to be traded, but it wouldn't be surprising to me if all three got a deal done somewhere within that first week of training camp.
Cameron, we're also seeing Aaron Rodgers returning to the NFL, this time with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we're now getting some details about what his contract with the Steelers is going to look like. $13.65 million is the base, but he gets about $1 million if they go to the Super Bowl, if they win the AFC. What do you sort of think he brings the Steelers, and do you think this was a good deal for the team?
Yeah, it's sort of both sides coming together saying this is our all-in push. This is our best available option. Look, the Steelers, they know how to be consistent and be a playoff contender. They need to get to that extra step and be a Super Bowl contender. And Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers have long had a relationship. The thought is Aaron Rodgers may have 1 or 2 years left. And if we can put him behind a good defense, a good weapon, and DK Metcalf, maybe we can get that last squeeze out of the juice for him to push it over the top. And for Rodgers' case, you mentioned the contract. He wasn't trying to break the bank. He probably could have demanded a $30, $40 million salary. He said, I was willing to pay for $10, $20 million. And that's essentially what he's going to do. And for this team, it's Super Bowl or bust. They feel like they have the right coaching, and they just needed that quarterback after Russ and Justin Fields couldn't get them over the top. And so I already talked with their offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith. He believes there's going to be a great fit with him and Rodgers. He feels like they're going to gel as far as the scheme, the play action calling. And there's a hope that when they play week 1 against the Jets, Aaron Rodgers can come off and be happy that he got revenge over his former team.
Yeah, I know Myles Garrett was asked about him joining the AFC North and said about Rodgers, I think it's a good opportunity to put him in the graveyard. Of course, the Steelers hoping it does put them in the postseason contention with a move like Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I can't wait till the season to start. Myles Garrett already getting us hyped up. We're pumped.
That's the smell in the air. The season's getting close. We can already smell it. Cameron Wolfe over at NFL Network. Cameron, thank you so much for joining us. And don't go anywhere, guys. We've got more Front Office Sports today coming up right after this, including DeAndre Hopkins joining us to talk about joining the Baltimore Ravens and his next career maybe in music. Don't go anywhere.
And welcome back into Front Office Sports today alongside Baker Machado. I'm Renee Washington, and we're welcoming in a 5-time Pro Bowler, 5 All-Pro receiver who is, in my opinion, undoubtedly a future Hall of Famer.
Oh, yeah.
It is DeAndre Hopkins. Hi. Welcome to the show. So nice to have you here.
Thank y'all. I appreciate all the accolades. You didn't have to say all that, but thank you.
Well, and then you really are going to like what we have to say next of happy belated birthday to you.
33, how does it feel, Hop?
Well, when you walk in the locker room and they call you grandpa and unc, you definitely feel older than most. But 33 in reality isn't old. But football years, I've been blessed.
I know. Well, coming off of celebrating your 33rd birthday on Friday, you are officially into OTAs with the Baltimore Ravens as you're in this one-year contract. And what I love about all this is how you manifested this. Of course, we know the viral picture from 5 years ago of you, Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson with the caption, "How many touchdowns will this trio score?" But I think beyond the touchdowns, I'm curious, what else came to mind at the thought of being able to be reunited with Derrick Henry and alongside Lamar Jackson and really building a legacy with the three of you?
Yeah, it's it's always a dream of mine to play with just Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Being in Houston, having a rotation of quarterbacks, I feel the past couple of years I finally got to experience what life is like playing with future Hall of Famers. Played with Pat last year, and I was like, if I get a chance, I would always want to play with Lamar. And that came about, and so I got to thank the Ravens for allowing that to happen. But I played with Derrick in Tennessee. He's a brother of mine, so for us to come back together is unique.
And also just going from Kansas City, going from playing with Patrick Mahomes to now playing with Lamar Jackson, it's just clear you're getting these reps with these incredible quarterbacks. What's that sort of feeling like, going from playing for Mahomes to now Lamar Jackson?
I didn't accomplish what I wanted to in the Chiefs game as well last year, but I'm still grateful for every opportunity that I had over there. To play with a guy like Pat is incredible. He's a leader off the field and on the field. He's just a pro's pro, and so to come over and to be around Lamar and see how Lamar works, it's incredible. Not everyone gets a chance to play with two future Hall of Fame quarterbacks, two amazing guys, and I'm just blessed and taking it day by day.
Let's talk about some of the stuff that you're doing off the field as well. You're partnering with Zico with their Unmatched campaign. Tell us a little bit more about this. And then how do you sort of align yourself with specific brands? What do you sort of look for when you're working with someone?
I'm an avid coconut water drinker. So for myself, Zico was natural. It was something that aligned with me. I play sports, sweat a lot. So just getting that potassium and sodium in me has always been something that I've learned at a young age. You gotta replenish. Zico has a great name, great representation, and the people that are involved with it are great people. So for me, I look for great leadership from up top. I've been dedicating more time in the off season, taking classes at Clemson and being around the right people. But I would say over the past couple of years, I've definitely hammered down just teaching myself and teaching other guys as well. A lot of young guys in the NFL come and ask me about what I'm doing, and I'm an open book.
Well, you mentioned you're taking classes over at Clemson. What are you planning for once your NFL days are over? Like, what is the thing that gets you really excited?
I like competing. Of course, I would love to be in the front office somewhere, or help an organization win a championship. But also, I'm into music. I'm into country music. I'm into pop music. I have a publishing company called Lasa, and I just signed my first artist named LaCade, who's a up-and-coming superstar. So, I've been into music as well my whole life, just been around a mom who sings, and that's a passion of mine. But I can see myself being in the front office one day.
Don't say it, because I'm going to ask. I think what you're going to ask. Do you produce and create music? Are you musically talented? Do you sing? Are there instruments? Like, now I'm curious. C-Hop the musician. Give us a little bit more.
When's this LP dropping?
Yeah, we need some more here.
It can happen sooner than later. I would definitely say I'm more of a, I'm not the best singer. If you hear my raspy voice, you would know that. But I can definitely get in there and write a little bit. I know how to produce certain things as well, but I'm still learning. It's new.
Well, what musician would people be surprised to know that you like to listen to?
Yeah.
Like, what's on your Spotify right now?
Man,
I would say rap. What's your top ones?
I listen to rap, but not all the time. But I would say maybe Chris Stapleton.
Oh, interesting. Love him. Saw him at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He was great.
Yeah, maybe Chris Stapleton or Marcus King Band. Not a lot of people know about Marcus King Band.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, we're learning something new here. I had no idea. Okay, so you're dabbling, and it sounds like there's so much more on the music side, even just as you're mentioning, learning financial literacy that you're actively tapping into. So looking forward to that dropping.
What about maybe future NFL ownership? Is that something you're interested in? Because I feel like every player is getting into that now.
That's true.
Of course. I've definitely, look at certain ownership groups in other sports. So why not the NFL?
Why not?
Nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well then to shift a little bit into the more future discussions around the Olympics with the flag football opportunity for NFL players. 2028 will be here before we know it. But would that be something that you'd be interested in participating in and being flag? I mean, we saw the speed. We've been seeing that on full display. Are we possibly going to see you, try to, take an opportunity there?
You'd be amazing at it.
Never say never, but I doubt it. I'm not sure they would want a 37, 36-year-old wide receiver out there representing America for the Olympics, but you never know.
36 years young.
Yeah, well, I think Patrick Mahomes said, let's leave it for the young guys. Is that kind of where you're at with that?
Yeah, that's how I feel. I think it's, let those young guys get all the fame and be able to travel and see the world. But
last thing I want to ask you, though, as we wrap up really quickly, is there anything else that you've got going on that you want to tease? I feel like you kind of were hinting at in the financial literacy aspect, maybe there's something on the horizon beyond just music. I don't know if I'm missing the mark there, but is there something else that you're considering dabbling in?
Yeah, I definitely want to start a VC fund, which I'm working on right now with some guys, and possibly a management group.
Ooh, all right. Well, a lot of exciting things on the horizon, and now that I know that you're involved in music, let me try my song again. Happy belated birthday.
Oh yeah, look at you, Marilyn
Let me get the vocal
chords
right.
But before we go, make sure everybody drinks Zico, 0 added sugar, all that good stuff, 100% coconut water. Got a shot at Zico.
Amen.
There you go. Absolutely unmatched with Zico. Well, thank you so much for jumping on the show with us and just sharing all the insight around the incredible things you've got going on, D-Hop. Hopefully you've been enjoying your birthday month. I like to say it's a birthday month.
I have.
And enjoying the start of OTAs. And after this break, we've got more to talk about here on FOS Today, though, so don't go anywhere.
Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee. I'm Baker, and the WNBA's Golden State Valkyries might only have been playing for the last couple of weeks as the newest franchise in the league, but according to reports, next year they might become the most valuable women's sports franchise in the world, surpassing the $400 million valuation by the New York Liberty. So how did they get here? Well, let's get into that and so much more with our FOS Deals reporter, Ben Horney. He's also the author of the Asset Class newsletter, which, of course, you can sign up for at frontofficesports.com. So, Ben, this is crazy to think a team that hasn't really won anything besides just a few games so far this season, potentially is about to become the most valuable women's sports franchise in the world.
Yes.
How did this happen?
Yeah, so I mean, as you said, they've only been playing a few weeks. They're not even playing that well. I think, what did we say? They have 4 wins maybe. Mm-hmm. It really comes down to, from what I can tell, their ownership group is the same ownership group as the Golden State Warriors. Mm-hmm. They play in the Chase Center, which is where the Warriors play, and they're in the Bay Area, which is just this major economic area. And also it speaks to the explosion of just team valuations, not even just WNBA. I mean, sports generally is being lifted right now.
Yeah, I mean, going into this past weekend, they also were leading the league in terms of attendance. So they're showing on and off the court that they're really a great franchise that's being invested in. But also on the other side, a team, the Connecticut Sun, someone else that's been up for sale for the WNBA. Last year, they were listed around $80 million in valuation. And now the number's around $200 million in terms of their valuation, a massive growth. And last year, they were one of the lowest teams across the league in terms of that value. As you mentioned with the growth, how much does this change in terms of investment in teams, but even teams being sold, help the league at this stage?
Yeah, well, there's so much activity with teams being bought and sold, and each deal is, in any given league, is kind of leading to the next deal, surpassing that deal. So I don't know the specifics of the Sun, but I know if you look back in history, WNBA teams were bought for $2 million, 20 years ago. And there were notable players then. You had the Liberty with Rebecca Lobo and Teresa Weatherspoon. You had, Cheryl Swoops. You had all kinds of people who were very notable names, but for whatever reason, they didn't have the same cachet as they do now. Obviously part of this is the Caitlin Clark effect. Caitlin Clark, I think, has lifted the entire WNBA and has shown light on other superstars the league has, from her rivalry with Angel Reese. You have Kelsey Plum. You have, Brittany Griner. There's just, if you go down the list, there's a lot of people know. And that is really what it comes down to with a lot of this stuff. If there's someone that people will go out to the stadium to see or will turn their TV on to watch, the values will go up. And one other point, the WNBA recently inked I think it's a $2.2 billion media rights deal.
Yep.
That's a huge role that plays into these valuations.
Well, real quick, as a last minute here, what does factor into that valuation? What are those key points that are a big aspect in terms of how a team is valuated?
Well, I think the media rights deal is a bigger piece than we've even touched on here. I think, I forget the exact numbers of their previous media rights deal, but it was nowhere near that. They've always been tied to the NBA, and they have kind of their own $2.2 billion deal right now. The players also realize their value. There's reports that they're going to opt out of their collective bargaining agreement and try to renegotiate. So the players see their value. The fans are obviously seeing their value, and buyers are seeing their value. Assets are only worth as much as someone's willing to pay, and people seem to be willing to pay.
Really incredible just to see the growth happening so unbelievably quickly. Ben Horney, thank you so much. And on the topic of asset, be sure to sign up for Ben's newsletter, Asset Class, of course, over at frontofficesports.com. Of course, everything you need to know about what's happening in deals and money within the sports and business industry. All right, guys, let's see what's bubbling over at the FOS water cooler. Well, the NCAA, Renee, is saying that social media abuse targeting both men's and women's athletes decreased 42% during March Madness, and abuse directed at women specifically in the tournament decreased 83%. However, officials and coaches, they experienced a spike in harassment on the men's side. That was up 140%. A lot of that, of course, had to do with North Carolina's athletic director early on in the March Madness process. He got a lot of it, coaches as well. So I guess maybe good news and news.
Yeah, I don't
understand
Depending
this.
on how you look at it. Yeah, glass half full or half empty. But it is interesting because sports betting related abuse specifically also dropped 23%. So when I was reading through this some more, it says that a big part of this for the men's side is because this was the fewest outright upsets.
Yeah, true.
So less underdogs, less Cinderella teams. And then that's the lowest since the field expanded. So people were in outrage over that. They were also in outrage over the bubble teams that did not make the tournament altogether, and then also coaching changes.
Right.
So there were a number of coaches on the men's side, if you remember, that left their program, left one, from NC State to McNeese. We saw so many different changes. And so a big part of it was that as well. So it is encouraging that the athletes aren't getting the brunt of this. But on the other side, for the officials, the coaches, they're getting a lot of heat from fans. They're just not happy with what they're seeing.
It shows that we have some work to do, but we are getting somewhere.
Progress.
All right, guys, coming up on Front Office Sports tomorrow, we're chatting with how the city of Hotlanta is preparing for the FIFA Club World Cup. Thanks so much for watching. Renee and I'll be back with you later on. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.